He pulled the net right out of my hand. Today is moving day, or should I rather say tonight. We're still the same night that we scaped all the tanks, but today we're moving all of the clown loaches as well as the vieja to the tank. If you guys remember, we have 50 large clown loaches and about 17 vieja that are going to be stocking the new aquarium. Now I know it's cloudy, but we're going to jump ahead a few days in a moment and I'll show you what the tank looks like once it clears up and with fish. In order to get into these bigger aquariums up top and really just be able to reach to the bottom, I gotta get a bigger ladder. He pulled the net right out of my hand. These little guys are tough. I guess we're gonna do them one at a time. When you have a fish that's flopping around like this, it's good to pinch the top of the bag so it restricts them from injuring themselves. Then into the tank, let them swim out of the net. And there you have it. Whew, does he ever look small in this big tank? Since these guys are moving around so quickly, it's gonna be in my best interest to use two nets. One to corral, one to scoop, but I guess it doesn't matter which net they end up in. That's it for the vieja. They're all moved in. They're all kind of exploring the tank. The camera's not really going to pick it up, but they look absolutely fantastic in it. The tank certainly does dwarf them. We'll come back to these guys in a while though when the tank clears up. Whew. Time to move on to the loaches. Now the loaches are fast as lightning and they do not want to be picked up. But we gotta do it. Got some. The tank is already starting to clear up. We're being able to see the fish sorta. You can see what I'm doing here is a little differently. Remember when I said when you get a bunch of fish you want to pinch the bag? Well, instead when I scoop these guys up from the tank, if I just let them hang there, there's nowhere for them to go or flop around. Here's a prime example of why you need to be careful with loaches when handling them. If you look right in front of his eye there, see that spine poking out? Well, they have them on both sides, and when they feel threatened, they poke them out, or if they want to lodge themselves into an area, they'll poke those out. So just be very careful. All right, so all fish are in the aquarium. Believe me, they're in there. We'll come back in a few seconds here where we'll be a few days ahead and you'll see this tank much clearer. Now we gotta move the rainbows. Okay, as the rainbow fish tank is filling, I'm gonna go ahead and start adding them into it. You do wanna be careful when scooping these guys. These smaller fish get hurt easier. Oh, that's gonna be an awesome tank. All fish are added, tanks are now up and running for a few days. Let's take a closer look at the rainbow fish since we ended with them. So the rainbow fish aquarium, if you guys don't know, there's a mixture of two different types of rainbow fish in here. There's the Bosmani, and then there's the red or the Iranian red rainbows within it. There are more reds than there are Bosmani. There's probably about 20 Bosmani and maybe 40 reds. I dwindled it down to about 60 total. I think that's a perfect amount for this scape as well as this aquarium size. The scape is a very simple one. Again, we only used 3 pieces of wood covered in a bit of Java moss, and the goal here was to almost fill the tank up with some wood to the point where the rainbows feel secure and are constantly out and about, never really dashing, displaying their color properly. And the first thing we'll note here is that the reds are far more comfortable in this aquarium than the Bosmani. And that has more to do with their species than the scape or anything to do with the aquarium. The Bosmani simply take more time to get established and comfortable in the aquarium and then finally color up. However, the reds are looking really, really red. If you guys remember, these guys used to almost be like a pink fish. Now they're a deep, dark, iridescent red. Very, very beautiful, very deep red. Some of the Bosmanis are starting to look good as well. However, again, that's just gonna take time, and I've said this time and time again, when we get new fish, a lot of times they're quite tiny, and we just need to give them time to, you know, grow into their adult sizes as well as their colorations, but
this tank is certainly going to look absolutely stunning in the long run. I think it looks fantastic now. Very low maintenance as well. Given the flow of the Ecotech wave makers, this is constantly causing tremendous amount of flow within the aquarium. Not so much that the rainbows are being blown around, but it is keeping a lot of debris off of the floor so that the overflow can actually remove it. All I've got to do is simple water changes. And of course, feed the fish, which is always fun. Now you guys will always notice that I'm always getting up on ladders to access the aquariums and whatnot. That's because the top of the tank is almost 8 feet in the air. With the canopy, it does go to 8 feet. And that brings up a topic that is interesting as to what fish I can actually put in the top rack, because when you're putting fish 7 and 8 feet up in the air, they tend to get a little bit more skittish and shy, so you almost need some mindless fish up there. And by mindless, I just mean that they're far more outgoing and more comfortable and get established into an aquarium far better than, say, discus. Now, I shouldn't say that discus shouldn't be put up high, because when I was breeding discus, I had those guys up 5 and 6 feet up in the air, but there was never no cameras, no bright lights, nothing like that. They were just allowed to breed and do their thing. But now we can see that the top rack and all of the fish are always out and about. Of course, the rainbows are going to be, but also the tank of peacock cichlids. You guys can see that these guys are constantly active, always swimming around, always doing their thing, and regardless of what I'm doing in the gallery, this is how they always display. But not all fish are always going to do that, so having the rainbows up in this aquarium is a good idea. Again, that goes along with the peacocks, the rainbows, as well as the angels. The angels are always out and about. Now, while these guys did start off in the 375-gallon aquarium, let's take a look at that now, because what we're doing over there is an even better idea than what we had previously. So the 375 now has 17 vieja. There's 3 different species in there. We have Synspillum, we have Argentea, as well as we have Hartwigi. We also have 50 large clown loaches. Now the loaches will take a little bit longer to settle into the aquarium, but they're already eating, they're already exploring the aquarium, and the vieja are almost established almost immediately. Before we get into the scape and why I chose it, I kind of want to talk about the fish's activity. Out of all the vieja, the Argentea are the only ones that kind of stick together within their species. The clown loaches go together as well. For the most part, they're always in packs. But you guys will remember that when I was scaping this aquarium, I had to keep 2 things in mind. 1, the fish that I'm actually keeping, and 2, how they're actually going to interact with their environment long term, as well as immediately. So again, we created a wooden structures in the back for some hiding and breaking lines of sight. You know, sometimes when cichlids are, getting territorial, all it really takes is for one to get out of the way and not be seen, and that can diffuse the aggression. We also needed a scape that kind of sloped down just to give it a nicer appeal, plus have a large open space. And this would encourage most of the fish to come out in the open most of the time, and that's exactly what they're doing. However, they are still a little bit skittish. Watch this. When I approach the aquarium, they do exactly what we had anticipated, which is when they need a sense of security, they'll go over to the area that we built for them to have just that. And then of course, they all come right back out. I also limited the amount of lighting on this aquarium since we're not really going to be having many plants in here. There's a few ferns. They're going to do fine with, next to almost ambient lighting. They'll still grow and survive. So we now just have 1 light over the aquarium. This is going to cut the electricity in half in terms of lighting. Plus, I like the appeal that it has. As is in person, you get a different sense of depth as well. Since we don't have a background on it, and the tank being 3 feet wide, it looks like it definitely goes on further than it does. I just gotta make sure I gotta keep that back panel nice and clean to maintain that illusion. Over the past couple days, I'll admit that I've just been kind of sitting here observing the fish. And one thing that's interesting is because the light is so high, we're getting some light spill. So they can see me almost as good as I can see them, which long term is going to be beneficial in terms of creating a less skittish fish. Now, I wouldn't do this with all my aquariums, but with such a big tank and so many fish in there, they're definitely going to have a more sense of security than my average aquarium. Now, over the last couple of days, I've only done 1 water change, and the water is clear. There's no debris floating around it, but there is a slight tint to it caused by the wood releasing tannins. And when it comes to like bogwood, like the Malaysian bogwood, those release tannins for a long period of time. Absolutely harmless, and some can argue that it's beneficial to the fish. It's just kind of ugly, gives the tank a more tea-colored look. Some would say it looks more natural. I'm not a huge fan of it. I'd rather have it look like the 2,000-gallon tank, crystal clear. But this will go away over time with simple water changes. Of course, I could also add some activated carbon to the filtration to remove it. But I'm not that too picky over it right now. I'll just wait long term until something else happens. But as you can see, look at all the Argentea came up right away all together. The Hartwiggi kind of do their own thing, and the Senspillum are the bosses of the aquarium, and it just so happens that they will be the most colorful and flamboyant in the aquarium. The Argentea are my favorite in this tank, and long term, in like 8 months to a year, you're going to see exactly why. Over this year, these fish are going to go from the 4 inches that they are to probably anywhere between 8 to 14 inches each. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Of course, the filtration system can handle it, but I'm curious to see what will happen amongst each other. The clownfish, of course, the clown loaches, of course, are going to take a tremendous amount of time to grow. That's why, you know, large clown loaches aren't typically very common. However, we have large sizes, and over the next year, they'll probably put on an inch or two, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but they're definitely interacting with the Vieja on a positive note. Nobody's attacking anybody, and feeding this tank is an absolute blast. The Argentea will go after the food, but the loaches create an entire frenzy. And a feeding video is something that I want to do in the near future. We'll go ahead and feed everything throughout the entire gallery, so if you guys want to see that, let me know in the comment section below. Also drop a like. And of course, if you're not subscribed to this channel yet and that's something you want to see, make sure that you do so you don't miss it. We should end this video on what's coming next. Oh, I guess I should mention we now have just one last empty aquarium right here. I think I know what I want to put in there. We'll see if I can get a hold of the fish that I actually want to put in it first, and we'll go from there. Then we have this last racking system, the last 2 aquariums in the entire gallery. Not sure what we're doing up top, but down low, we're going saltwater.